They called themselves Legio IX Hispana, the Ninth, a unit with a life measured in marches, sieges, fort walls, and wine-scented campfires. For a time, the legion's stamped tiles and carved tombstones lay like breadcrumbs across the empire, small, stubborn fingerprints of a fighting force that had moved from one frontier to another. Then, in the records of Rome, the trail dissolves. The Ninth fades from the official lists and from the carved calendars of the emperors. In its place is a silence that has, for 2 centuries, done as much to provoke imagination as any battle. Imagine a fall morning in Roman Britain, the earth in the ditches still soft from the rain, the timber roofs silvered with mist, and the legionaries forming up on the parade ground. Their standards, the emblems of their identity, caught light as if to confirm an oath. We are here, we will hold. The Ninth had been in Britain for generations of occupation. They worked the earth and built the roads. They manned forts where the world narrowed to a single gate and a single sentry. In towns such as Eboracum, York, their presence was woven into the urban fabric. Stamped tiles in bathhouses and workshops, epitaphs carved in Latin from men who had finished their service and chosen to lie down where they had served. Those traces allow us to say, without grand speculation, that the Ninth was once rooted in Britain. But the documentary certainty ends. The Roman world kept a meticulous habit of recording titles and lists. Legions appear and reappear in military diplomas, inscriptions, and the terse dryency of official correspondence. After a point in the early 2nd century, the Ninth stops being named in those sources. The silence is not absolute. There are tantalizing marks, inscriptions in other provinces that may refer to men who once served under the Ninth standard. But nothing that settles the simple question, what happened to the Ninth as a unit? From that question, a series of competing theories has grown, each one taking the fragments and building a plausible architecture. The most dramatic version is also the oldest in public imagination, that the Ninth was annihilated in Britain, overwhelmed in a northern uprising. It is an image of a legion swallowed by a landscape of bog and hill, a banner taken, the eagle lost. Romance and fiction seized on the idea. It is easy to see why. The notion of a single catastrophic defeat has narrative clarity. For those who prefer straightforward endings, the Ninth vanishes in one terrible day. Heroic, tragic, and tidy. But history resists tidy endings. Archaeological surveys of the supposed regions of catastrophe have not produced the mass graves, the scorched forts, the kind of destruction layer that would be expected if a whole legion and its auxiliaries had been wiped out in one fell stroke. Warfare in the Roman age was messy and continuous. Isolated ambushes and pitched battles happened, but the total destruction of a legion left marks, in pottery and in broken swords, in the abandonment of settlements and in sudden ruptures in the pottery sequence. The evidence for such an upheaval across northern Britain is by no means clear. Accounts vary. Some scholars point to local disturbances and to gaps in the record as suggestive. Others argue that the archaeological record is too thin to support the idea of annihilation. The novel that most shaped modern popular ideas, The Story of an Eagle, recovered by a young centurion, was fiction, and that has only complicated the line between evidence and imagination. Another theory is less cinematic, but perhaps more plausible to professional historians. The Ninth was transferred out of Britain, sent to other frontiers, and there its identity dissolved in the constant churn of imperial logistics. The Roman army did not always move whole legions like chess pieces. It dispatched detachments, vexillationists across provinces to plug gaps, build forts, or reinforce campaigns. A legion might be repeatedly parcelled out over decades, its elements serving in different theatres and being recorded separately. The administrative registers that make up our picture sometimes track those detachments, sometimes do not. It is conceivable that the Ninth's detachments were left scattered, some to be merged into other legions, some to be erased by casual bureaucratic renaming. In other words, the Ninth may have ceased to exist, not with a single bang, but through a slow administrative unraveling. Evidence for movement does exist in the shards and stamped bricks. Tiles bearing the Ninth's mark are found in more than one province, and veterans' inscriptions show men who once served under the Ninth's sign living out their retirement elsewhere. Such fragments can support a picture of redeployment. The Legion moved on and was then lost in the fog of imperial paperwork. Yet the opposite reading is also possible, that those tiles and tombstones are the last echoes of a presence that was soon to be extinguished. A third line of argument pushes the disappearance further afield. Some have proposed that the Ninth went east, into the Parthian theatre or beyond, and there met its end amid the great imperial conflicts that simmered along Rome's eastern borders. The East was a place where legions could vanish from one year's roll call and reappear the next, reconstituted or renumbered, and where records were often consumed in conflagrations and diplomatic ruptures. Accounts vary here more than anywhere. The evidence that links a specific Eastern disaster to the Ninth is sparse and circumstantial. It remains attractive because it aligns with known patterns. Rome sent legions where the problem seemed most pressing, and suffering catastrophic loss at the hands of a sophisticated enemy on a different frontier is not out of character for the age. Then there is an administrative explanation that carries a subtle sting. The Ninth did not so much vanish as become invisible. Emperors reorganized armies, legions were split, renamed or disbanded when the politics of the capital demanded new allegiances or when a legion's loyalty became suspect. A legion could be stripped of its honors and merged into another. Its title dropped from lists in a single bureaucratic sweep. The evidence for such internal housecleaning is fragmentary because it often leaves no archaeological footprint. In this reading, the Ninth's disappearance is less a dramatic end and more a procedural erasure, a chosen forgetting that leaves veterans, tiles, and a host of small markers where once a living organization stood. The debate about the Ninth is not merely an academic quarrel about records. It has tangible human contours. The veterans' graves in Britain, the house foundations, the traces of bread ovens and latrines. These are the material residue of men who were once counted as part of the Ninth's community. For their families and for the communities around the forts, the fall of a legion would have meant the reordering of lives. The withdrawal or death of a garrison would alter local economies. A redeployment would mean unfamiliar troops and new patterns of trade. The legion's disappearance, therefore, is a story of people as much as of military units. There is also a deeper historical note to consider. Empires are full of absences. We prize the surviving decrees, the monuments standing in sunlight, the victories carved in stone. But equally telling are the lacunae, missing lists, unreadable scrolls, a legion name that vanishes between two columns of an official roll. These gaps shape the contours of our understanding. They are the places where conjecture grows and where narrative will sometimes outstrip the material. The Ninth's case crystallizes that dynamic. It reveals how thin the scaffolding of certainty can be and how eager hands fiction or scholarship are to build upon it. What, then, can we say with confidence? We can say that the Ninth existed and that its presence was once tangible in Britain and elsewhere through inscribed stones and stamped bricks. We can say that, at a point in the early 2nd century, the legion's name stops appearing in the routine records. After that, the direct evidence is ambiguous. We can say that several plausible paths could explain this silence: annihilation in battle, administrative absorption, redeployment and dispersal, or destruction elsewhere. But none of these paths is established as the single, definitive account. If history insists on anything, it is that certainty be earned. The story of the Ninth is therefore not a solved mystery, but a study in the limits of our knowledge. The image that lingers is almost cinematic. A standard left unclaimed on a northern moor, a legion's tiles scattered across provinces, an official list with a gap like a missing tooth. The loss is less a spectacular event than a bruise on the archive, a place where the Empire's orderly record shows its human vulnerability. In the end, the lost Ninth remains an invitation. To archaeologists, it is a call to dig deeper, to find the slivers of pottery that fit into a wider pattern. To historians, it is a prompt to read the silences as carefully as the texts. And to the rest of us, it is a reminder that even the greatest powers leave behind riddles, questions that resist simple answers and that keep the past alive in the spaces where the record is quiet. The Ninth Eagle may have been taken, its men dispersed, its name erased, or perhaps its story simply folded into another file. Whatever the truth, the absence itself has become part of the Legion's lasting legacy. What did become of the Ninth? The Earth holds its secrets, and history, as ever, asks us to listen to what is not said.